Have you ever felt like you always carry everyone? Like you're the main one who has to fix and manage and hold it together. Make sure everyone's okay. Keep everything and everyone from falling apart. Have you ever felt that way? Maybe you are, guess what? The caretaker. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're the caretaker, okay? Maybe you are the responsible one, the fixer. Is that you? If you are, let me explain something to you. Maybe you are the one everyone calls on when they need help. But when you're exhausted, when you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, when you're anxious and burnout, nobody really knows how much that you carry. Nobody knows how much you carry. And maybe deep down, you have wondered. You wonder, why can't I just rest? Why do I feel guilty when I say no? Why do I feel so anxious when I'm not doing something? When I'm just idle, when I'm just resting, when I'm just sitting on the couch, when I'm sleeping, why do I feel like everyone's emotions are my responsibility? Okay, why am I so tired, but I still cannot stop? Okay, today I want to help you guys, okay? I want to help you understand something that's extremely powerful, okay? You are not broken. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not just too sensitive. No, that's not you. You're not too sensitive, okay? You're not simply a caretaker, a controller. No, you're not that. A perfectionist. You're not just a caretaker, controller, perfectionist, or an overachiever, or you're not simply an over-responsible person. Many of these patterns are not your true identity. They are a survival identity. They are roles your nervous system created to help you survive. And when those roles are not healed, they eventually lead to burnout, sleepless nights, stress, agitation, quick anger, anxiety in the body, and disconnection from who you truly are. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how trauma develops, how it affects the brain and the nervous system, and how survival mode creates false identities, and how self-empathy, somatic exercises can help you begin to transform your life. So welcome back, you guys. Welcome. I'm Krystal Boothe. Welcome to Trauma Talks. I'm a trauma coach and a trauma recovery therapist, and I help people understand the connection between trauma, the nervous system, burnout, fate, and deep inner healing. Today's teaching is about survival mode, false identity, because so many people are trying to heal burnout by simply doing less, taking a vacation, setting one boundary, or getting more sleep. While those things can help, they do not fully heal the root cause of the problem. Because burnout, guess what, is not always just a schedule problem. Sometimes burnout is an identity problem. Sometimes burnout happens because you're living from a survival role that was created by the trauma. So let's break this down today, step by step. Thank you guys for joining me. In part one, trauma creates the need for survival, okay? First, you have to understand that, okay? Trauma is not simply what happened to you, guys. Trauma is what happened inside of you because of what happened to you, okay? Two people can go through the same situation, but their nervous system may process it differently. Trauma is not only about the event. No, that's not the only thing that trauma is about. It's about how the body, the brain, emotions, and identity responded to that event. Yes. Okay. So when a child experiences emotional neglect, abandonment, rejection, criticism, abuse, instability, parentification, domestic violence, addiction in the home, emotional invalidation, or growing up in an environment where they never knew what version of their caregiver they were going to get. Okay, things suddenly happen. The nervous system began to learn something. The world is not safe. The world is not safe. That's what you begin to learn, okay? The child may not have the language to say that. The child may not have the language to process that. They may not say, I am developing a trauma response. No, they don't know that. They may not say, my nervous system is adapting to chronic threat. They don't know that their nervous system is adapting to chronic threat, but the body knows. The body begins to adapt immediately. The brain begins to scan. The emotions begin to organize around survival. Okay? You understand that? Okay? And the child starts asking, often, unconsciously, they're asking this, what do I need to do to stay safe? For one child, the answer may be, and this is when I say it's not what happens to you, it's who you decide to become. One might say, I need to be good. I need to be good. I need to make everyone around me happy. Okay? All right? Or for another child, they might need to stay quiet, stay invisible so nobody can see them. That's how they stay safe. For another, they might need to make everybody dance, they might just become the musician of the home. For another, they might need to take care of their parent. Yes, they might become the parent to the parent. For another, they might need to just achieve a lot. For another, they may need to never make mistakes. Be a perfectionist, never make anything wrong. And for another, they might need to control everything around them so nothing bad happens. These responses are not flaws. They are survival strategies. They are the nervous system attempt to protect the person from pain. But here's where the problem begins, you guys. If the trauma is never healed, the survival strategy does not stay a strategy. It morphs. Over time, it can become their identity. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Okay, so let's get into part 2. The brain and the nervous system enter survival mode. So you understand, when the brain perceives danger, it prioritizes survival. That means the nervous system shifts away from peace, connection, creativity, emotional balance, trust, and rest. Instead, it moves into protection mode. The body begins to prepare for threat. Yes. This is what many people call survival mode. Survival mode is not just a mindset, you guys. It's not just a mindset. It is a neurobiological state. It is the body living as if danger is still present, even when the original danger may no longer be happening. Okay? So the person may become hypervigilant. They may begin becoming hypervigilant. They are always scanning, always looking, always worrying. They are reading the room, reading the tone of the person's voice, reading everything. They're watching facial expressions, and they're anticipating rejection. They're trying to predict conflict before it happens, okay? They're thinking 5 steps ahead of everybody. They're trying to prevent disappointment, abandonment, criticism, chaos. They're constantly worried, okay? So the nervous system begins asking, what could I do? What could go wrong? What can I do to keep everything from going wrong? Who is upset in the room? What do I need to fix right now? What do I need to do? Okay? So they constantly living in this state. So how do you prevent it? How can I prevent pain? How can I prevent someone from getting upset right now? This creates chronic stress in the body. You see the problem there? The body may feel tight. The chest may feel heavy. Yes, because they're managing everything around them. They're keeping everything the way they need to be safe. Okay, so the stomach may feel upset when this happens. The shoulders may feel tense. The mind may race at night, thinking, constantly planning, figuring things out. Sleep may become difficult because the brain does not feel safe enough to fully rest. Okay, so this is why people in survival mode often have sleepless nights, you guys. Sleepless, they don't sleep at night. They may be physically tired, of course, because they're not sleeping, but neurobiologically on high alert. Their body is exhausted, but their brain is still on guard. The brain ain't resting. This is what survival mode looks like, an unrested brain. So when the survival mode continues for years, it begins to shape how a person begins to see themselves. So that's how that identity comes in. So let's go into 3. Strategies become false identities. So it was a strategy. If a person remains unhealed, survival strategies eventually become false identities. This is where a person stops saying, I learned to caretake. And they become, I have to survive, or I had to survive. And instead they say, this is just who I am. I'm a caretaker. Okay? They stop saying, I learned to control things because chaos felt unsafe. They switch it up. They no longer say that. And instead, now they begin to say, guess what? I am just a controlling person. They take on that identity of a controlling person. You understand that? So they stop saying, I learned. Guess what? I learned to overachieve because performance got me approval. This is what I did. It's not what becomes who they are. And instead they become, I am only valuable when I succeed. They stop saying, I learned to be responsible because nobody else was. I know that one very well. And instead, they say, everything is my responsibility. Everything is my responsibility. This is how trauma becomes an identity, you guys. Not because the identity is true. No, not but because the role becomes so familiar. And what is familiar can start to feel like truth. Okay? You get that? So watch out for things that feel familiar. They might start to feel like truth. It may not actually be true. Some common false survival identities, you guys, are caretaker. You might have heard of that one. The rescuer, the controller, the perfectionist, the overachiever, the people pleaser, the strong one, the responsible one, the fixer. These identities often begin as protection strategies. All right? So the caretaker learns, if I take care of everyone, maybe I will be loved. The rescuer learns, if I save everyone, maybe I will matter. Okay, you see that? The controller learns, if I control everything, maybe nothing bad will happen to me or anyone that I love. Okay, and then the perfectionist learns, guess what? If I do everything right, maybe I will not be criticized. Okay, the overachiever learns, guess what? If I accomplish enough, maybe I will be valuable. The people pleaser learns, guess what? If I make everybody happy, maybe I will not be rejected. Okay, so the strong one learns, if I never need anyone, maybe I will not be disappointed. Okay, you see where that is? These are survival strategies. The responsible one learns, if I carry everything, maybe the family, relationship, workplace, or situations will not fall apart. But none of these roles are the person's true identity. They are just survival roles, okay? All right? They were created to protect the person from pain, okay? So let's get into part 4. When the false identity becomes mistaken for the true self. You got to get this one. Over time, if a person does not come out of these false identities, they begin to believe the identities who they are. I think you follow me so far. Hopefully you are. Let me know, okay? So they may say things like, I am just the helper. I'm just a helper. I am just the strong one. That's what this is. I'm just a strong one. They begin to, because it's been going on so long. You get it? So I'm just a responsible one. I'm the one that's responsible for everybody. I'm just the one who handles everything. All right? I'm just the one who cannot relax. Okay? You see where this is going here? I'm just a person everyone depends on. This is how I live my life. But the danger is that the person begins to focus more on what they do and less on who they truly are. Okay? All right? And it's not about what you do. It's about who you are. Okay? Their value becomes attached to the function. Their identity becomes attached to their performance. Their worth becomes attached to the productivity. Their belonging becomes attached to usefulness. And they begin to believe, I'm valuable because I help. You're not valuable because you help. You're valuable because who you are. Okay? I'm lovable because I perform. I'm safe because I control. I'm accepted because I do not disappoint people. I never disappoint. I'm needed because I carry the burdens. Okay? So what happens when they are too tired to help? What happens? That's where the problem starts to come in. What happens when they cannot perform that day? What happens? Okay? What happens when they make a mistake? Everybody does. What happens when they say no? What happens when they need rest? What happens when they cannot carry everyone anymore? That is when anxiety rises. You see that? How this turns into mental illness? This is when guilt rises too. And that is when fear rises. Okay? Because the nervous system believes if I stop doing, I may lose love, safety, belonging, approval, or identity. Okay? So this is why rest can feel threatening for someone in survival mode. Okay, you see why rest would be a problem here? So this is why boundaries can feel terrifying for them. I don't want to have a boundary because people won't like me. This is why saying no can feel like danger for these people. Because to the healed self, boundaries are healthy. But to the survival identity, boundaries can feel like abandonment, rejection, or loss of control. And that's why these type of people have difficulty setting the boundaries. So let's get into part 5, the cost of living from a false identity. You need to see the cost of it because it is a cost. Okay, so the nervous system was never ever created to live in survival mode. It was never created to live in the amygdala. It was always created to live in the prefrontal cortex. So you can survive in survival mode, but you cannot fully thrive there. Okay? Don't you want to start thriving in life? Okay? Eventually the body starts to protest. No, you can show up emotionally or as anxious, worried, irritable, resentful, emotionally exhausted, overwhelmed, or quick to anger. Yes. And I want to pause here because many people, caretakers, feel ashamed when they start getting angry. They're like, I don't know why I'm getting angry. They think, what's wrong with me? Why am I getting so angry? I loved helping people. Why am I so irritated? Why am I snapping at people? You see what happens to the caretaker? Why am I becoming so impatient? But many times, anger is not the real root. Anger is not the real root. Anger is the signal. It is the symptom, you guys. Underneath the anger may be exhaustion. Okay? Underneath the irritation may be unmet needs. Underneath the agitation may be years of overgiving. Underneath the resentment may be a nervous system that is tired of carrying what was never yours to carry in the first place. So the body begins speaking through the symptoms. Anger, agitation, just snapping at people. Burnout comes in. Sleepless nights, chronic stress, fatigue, muscle tension, all of it, headaches, all of it, digestion issues, brain fog, anxiety in the body, chest tightness, restlessness, all of it, feeling like you cannot calm yourself down. Okay? Relationship struggle. Hello, relationship struggle. And over giving, over functioning, and absolutely lack of boundaries. Feeling responsible for everyone, difficulty receiving help, attracting people who need you but do not pour back into you. And these symptoms are often not random. You get it? They're not random. They are messages. The body is saying something to you. You're carrying an identity that was built for survival, not for freedom. Okay? It wasn't built for freedom. Burnout is often the nervous system screaming, saying, hello, I can no longer sustain this version of you. This is not the version that is balanced, okay? Not because the real you is wrong, but because the false identity is too heavy. It's too heavy to carry, all right? So let's get into part 6, the spiritual consequences of the false identity. You got to understand that. Now let's talk about the spiritual part, okay? You got to talk about that. One of the deepest effects of unresolved trauma is not that it can distort how a person sees themselves and how they relate to God, okay? But when the survival identities dominate, people may start to unknowingly place their trust in the role instead of placing their trust in God. You see that? That trust is in the role and not in God. You see that? So the caretaker trusts caretaking. Right. That's who they trust. The controller trusts control. The perfectionist trusts their perfection. The overachiever trusts their achievement. The rescuer trusts self-sacrifice. And the strong one trusts self-reliance. And that's trusting God. The responsible one trusts carrying everyone alone. My God. Oh, and slowly these identities become substitutes for trust. Okay? So the person may not say that out loud, that they don't have faith in God. That they may say, I love God. They may say, I pray. They may say, I serve. They may say, I read scriptures. But they trust what they do, not who God has made them. And they definitely don't trust God. They may have faith, but internally, the nervous system may still be saying, I have to hold everything together. I have to be perfect. I have to rescue everyone. No, you don't, honey. I have to carry this. I have to make sure nothing goes wrong. And I have to earn this love. I have to earn it. I have to work really hard for it. Okay? And I have to earn the safety. And I have to earn approval. Isn't that horrible, you guys? And this keeps the person from coming into the full knowledge of the truth about themselves and their relationship with God. You see that? Because God never created your identity to be built on performance. He never did that. Okay, God never created your worth to depend on productivity. God never created your safety to depend on control. Okay? God never created your belonging to depend on overgiving. God never created your life to be lived through a trauma-shaped identity. Okay? Your identity is not found in what you do. Your identity is found in who God says you are. All right? Not what you do. Okay? So you are loved before you perform. Okay? You're loved before you perform. Okay? You're valuable before you produce, and you're worthy before you rescue anyone. Okay? You're accepted before you prove yourself. You are not what trauma taught you to become. Okay? You are not what trauma taught you to become. You are who God created you to be, and healing is the process of coming back into agreement with that truth. Okay? So, let's get into part 7, okay? Healing is not fighting the survival identity. That's not healing, okay? I'm going to talk to you about this. Now, here's something very important, okay? You do not heal these parts by hating them. You do not heal the caretaker by shaming the caretaker. That's not how you heal this, okay? You're going to go into threat mode when you do that, okay? You do not heal the controller by attacking the controller. That's not how you heal it, okay? You do not heal the perfectionist by criticizing the perfectionist. That's not how you do it, okay? Let me explain how it's done, okay? These parts, guess what? They're trying to help. They were trying to help. These parts were trying to help. They may be exhausted. Guess what? They may be unhealthy now, definitely. They may be creating the burnout. Absolutely. They may be creating the burnout, okay? But they began as a protection because of the trauma. You get that? They began as a protection because of the trauma. So healing starts with self-empathy. You see how to fix it? Self-empathy means I stop treating myself like the enemy. I'm not the enemy. I stop asking what is wrong with you, and I start asking what happened to you. I start asking that. What happened to you? Krystal, what happened? Why? What happened to you that got you where you are? What did this part of me have to carry? You ask yourself that question. What did this part of me have to carry? What was this part trying to protect me from? Because it was trying to protect you from something. What's happening? What does this part need to hear now? And self-empathy allows the nervous system to experience compassion instead of pressure. Okay, you understand that? And when compassion enters the body begins to feel safe, enough to release survival. Okay, so now I want to walk you through some self-empathy and somatic exercises that can help you begin transforming your life. Okay? All right, so let's do exercise here. Exercise number one, meeting the caretaker. Meeting the caretaker. Let's talk about that. This first exercise, you guys, is called meeting the caretaker part. This is a part, okay? These are parts. Remember, it's kind of, I talked to you guys about this before when I talked to you about how the parts, if you start to disassociate and separate and then become these separate identities, okay? So the purpose of this exercise is to help you separate your true self from the caretaker identity or the caretaker part, however you want to word it, okay? All right. You start by placing one hand over your heart, okay, and one hand over your abdominal, if you feel comfortable doing that, okay. All right, that's what you do. All right, you take a slow breath. Take a slow breath. Okay, you hear me? You take a slow breath and go in. And you begin to breathe, okay?